Now, let's start off talking about the reasons why people fail financially. And when I wrote my book, The Financial Physician, How to Cure Your Money Problems and Boost Your Financial Health, the whole idea was the book are what is the 20 ailments that Americans have and why they fail financially, the things that they do wrong. And I think I set the tone for the book in the first 3 chapters. And the first chapter is on financial illiteracy, how most Americans are financially illiterate. They don't understand money. That you would think that, from the day we're born, money's involved in our lives, that we'd know something about it. We would know how to avoid debt. We know how to invest. We know how to manage our tax situation. We know how to buy a house, how to buy a car, how to live within our means. But we don't. The average American has little or no education in money. The second chapter of the book is that Americans are financially irresponsible. So you couple financial illiteracy with financial irresponsibility, and you got a disaster. And that's why the average family is paycheck to paycheck, has little or no net worth. And the third chapter lays it out even more, that Americans have feelings of material entitlement. We're Americans. We deserve to have a new car every 3 years. We need that big house. We live well here in America. Well, those things are changing, and we'll talk about that later in the program. We got a great program for you today. Lots of things to talk about. We're going to talk later in the program about the implosion of the woke media and the woke corporate America. Lots of news this past week on that. We're going to touch on that later on in the program. We're going to talk about the mask mandate being dropped on airplanes and the Obama administration trying to fight it. Just craziness we're dealing with. So let's get back to the beginning. Let's talk about financial literacy. Think about it. And I put this analogy in the book. I said, would you sit down to a high-stakes poker table in Las Vegas if you didn't know how the game was played? If you did, you'd be throwing your money away. Trust me. I remember, I'm a poker player, and I remember when I first played poker. I was with a bunch of buddies in the Taj Mahal, and that was the big poker room at the time. And they said, let's sit down and play poker. I sat down. I said, I play poker at home with my family. I think I know how to play. I think I lasted 10 minutes and I lost all my money. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm a pretty decent poker player now, but back then I wasn't. So it's the same kind of thing. You're throwing your money away if you're playing a game that you don't understand and you're not prepared to play. And millions of people do this exact thing. They go throughout life without understanding money and finances. And obviously, we all have to know money and finances because that's probably one of the most important things in our lives. The reason we have a job and the reason we go to school is to prepare ourselves financially to be able to go out and earn money, earn a living, put a roof over our head, feed ourselves and our families. Prepare for retirement. So all aspects of life are money related, which means financial illiteracy is a disaster and a dangerous situation for most people. Now, most of us have never been taught how to manage our personal finances. So if you don't learn about it, you're financially illiterate by default. At school, they teach us all sorts of subjects, most which we'll never use. We learn about ancient mythology. We learn about algebra. Now we're learning more about social issues like critical race theory, how we're all racist. They teach us in school that maybe you're a boy, but maybe you're a girl. All these things that have no effect on our success in life. And this was one of my big pet peeves about financial literacy is why aren't we teaching our kids early on the basics of finance? Basics. Not advanced investing. I'm talking about how a credit card works. The basics of income taxes. What are mortgages? What happens when we want a car? How do we buy it? And what's the financial ramifications of having a car? Are we better off with a used car that's cheaper or a new car? We don't teach our kids any of this. So when they graduate high school or they go to college, they're being thrown out into the world with little financial education. Now, I remember when I went to college my freshman year, I'll never forget the orientation day. I went to Rutgers in New Brunswick, and I remember being on College Avenue, and they were welcoming all the freshman class into the college. And in the courtyard there was kiosks set up. And they were credit card companies. And they wanted to sign you up for a credit card. And there was a line almost every kiosk. People said, wow, a credit card, man, I must have really made it. I'm 18 now. And I got one too. And boy, was that a mistake for most of us. Using credit to live on in college. Not a good thing. Not a good start in life. So lack of financial literacy, understanding the basics of money, is the reason why most people don't accumulate wealth. Now, we're seeing a change in this where schools now are starting. I mean, here we are in 2022. They're starting to offer personal finance classes. And at some school districts here in New Jersey just recently, you can't graduate unless you pass a personal finance course. And I think this is great. I've been hammering our education system for 30 years about the lack of financial education. And I've even volunteered to teach a personal finance class. For local schools looking for somebody to come in, I'd be more than happy to do it free. I think it's that important. And it gives our children a fighting chance that once they go out into the world, that they don't make mistakes. And let's keep it simple. What's the most prominent symptom of financial illiteracy? It's buying what you can't afford. That's number one. Getting ahead financially is pretty simple if you think about it. It is just don't buy things you can't afford. Because if you can't afford it, how are you going to buy it? You're going to go into debt to get it. And that comes back to the chapter 3 of this book, which is feelings of material entitlement, that we think we have to have what we want to have, regardless if we can afford it or not. And in many cases, people just don't understand debt and how it quickly can spiral out of control. And before long, many people find out, hey, wait, I got too much debt. I can't even afford to pay it. Back in the early 2000s, just before the financial crisis, so many Americans were just buying houses they couldn't afford because banks were willing to give them mortgages when the banks knew they couldn't afford it. And that led to the big mortgage crisis and the big financial crisis that we lived through in 2008. A recent study said that nearly half Americans live paycheck to paycheck because they don't know how to manage their personal finances. Which means that more than half American families are 2 paychecks away from being broke. There's no wiggle room if there's an emergency or an unexpected expense. We all know life happens. Just at the worst time, the refrigerator goes, or you need new tires, or dental work that's not insured. And most families, since they're living paycheck to paycheck, don't have an emergency fund. And this is the basics of personal responsibility, is you have to have a rainy day fund. If you don't, you're doing everything wrong. I mean, you have to at least have that. And what is an emergency fund? It's liquid cash that's available to you for unexpected expenses. You're laid off. We had the COVID crisis. A lot of people realized the importance of having an emergency fund during that time. And if it wasn't for the stimmy checks that we were all getting, many people would have went down the tubes. But how do you develop an emergency fund when you're spending more than you're earning? You can't. Also, a lot of people get into financial trouble because they're trying to keep up with their friends and neighbors. They see them living, extravagant lives, new cars in their driveway. They're always going on vacation. But it's hard to tell what's under the hood there. They may be struggling more than you because of their debt situation. Just because you see people with a nice house and nice cars doesn't mean that they have wealth. It means that they have debt in most cases, that they're living beyond their means. They put on this grand front, makes them look good, makes their ego feel good. But they're not in financially good shape. So don't be envious or tempted to mimic other people's lives, because chances are they're doing it wrong. So what could you do to overcome your financial illiteracy? And in my practice, when I see a new client, it's amazing how many of them are financially illiterate. They have money in their 401k invested so aggressively, they don't even know it. They don't know it. If I ask them, I say, well, what's the risk in this portfolio? And they'll go, I don't know. What's the percent equity exposure you have in this portfolio? How much is in the stock market? How much is in the bond market? I don't know. When's the last time you rebalanced the portfolio? What's that mean? And it's interesting because I'm talking about people with a lot of money in their 401ks, $500,000, $800,000, $1 million. They don't know the answers to these questions. You want to talk about being financially irresponsible and being totally illiterate to where your money is. So it's never too late to get an education. There's so many resources available to you to learn about money. Now, for most people, money, investing, taxes, debt is mundane. It makes their eyes glass over. The last thing they want to do is start learning about money. But it's so important to do so. I mean, you don't have to be an expert. Just learn the basics. If you don't, you can't take an active role in managing your money. You're going to defer to somebody else. And the big problem I see with people is credit and debt. Same thing, actually. Now, when used properly, credit's a good thing. Like, here's an example. If you get a low-interest, fixed-rate mortgage and you buy a reasonable house, that's good debt. It's an excellent use of credit. The problem is when your house rises and your equity grows, many people refinance and pull out the money to pay off their credit cards and the other debt that they've accumulated living beyond their means. The best example of bad debt is credit cards. Now, I use medical analogies in The Financial Physician in the book and on this show. And I say credit cards are cancer to the financial body. It is bad debt. It is high interest debt. It's debt that you hardly ever pay down the principal in most cases. Now credit card companies, when they send you your bill, it tells you how long it's going to take if you make the minimum payment to pay this debt off. And it's ridiculous. If you pay the minimum payment, it may take 25 years to pay off a credit card debt. But many people just pay the minimum because that's all they can afford. Many people who live beyond their means, they're making up the difference with credit cards. Last month, the Federal Reserve announced a gigantic spike in credit card debt. Something like $48 billion in 1 month. It was a record increase. Why? Part of it's inflation. Part of it is Americans have spent down all their savings during the COVID. They spent down their stimulus. And now they have to go into the credit card to live the same life they were living. Dangerous situation. We'll talk about inflation a little later. Another part of financial illiteracy is insurance. We don't talk a lot about insurance on this program, but insurance represents 10 to 15% of most families' expenses. And most people know little or nothing about it. You need to learn the basics of insurance. Most people I see have either too much insurance or too little insurance. I rarely see the perfect amount. They don't understand how it's used. They don't understand the deductibles. They don't understand if self-insurance for part of it. Few people shop around. How many people shop around for homeowners insurance? When's the last time you say, honey, let's go see if we can get a cheaper homeowners insurance. We're paying $1,500 now. Maybe we could save a couple $100. Most people don't want to go through that. It's so much easier just to renew with the company we have. Same is true of our auto insurance. But if you spend 15 minutes, you could save a ton in auto insurance. Jim, I think I could do a commercial. What do you think? Voiceover? Spend 15 minutes and we could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
You're hired.
Maybe I have a future in radio. We'll see if we can do that. But yes, you can shop for insurance and you could save a lot of money and you should do it. How about income taxes? Few people do tax planning. Most people are so fearful of the IRS and so ignorant about taxes, they pay others to do the work that they could do themselves. I'm not talking about their tax return. I'm just talking about figuring out your withholdings and all that kind of stuff. It's not that hard. Estate planning, another very important part of financial planning. Most people are financially illiterate. Most people make the biggest mistakes of their lives at the end of their lives by not doing the proper estate planning. And I got to tell you, more often than not now, we're seeing the baby boomers passing on now and wealth transfer to their children. I am seeing disasters. Will's not done properly. Will's not done at all. Will's not changed after a spouse dies, leaving a gigantic mess behind. I have a number of families that came to me. Their parents just died, and on their 401k or their IRA account, they have their estate as the beneficiary. They never named individuals. And now the estate has to pay taxes on the distribution of that money at estate tax rates, which are twice as much as personal tax rates, causing tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. Just amazing mistakes. Not preserving their estate to protect from nursing homes as their health is deteriorating. There's things that you need to do, and the financially illiterate don't do it. Goal setting. Few people have a plan. They live their lives on the fly. There is no plan. You can't succeed if you don't know where you're going. It's that simple. You got to set specific goals. You got to write your goals down. You got to live a disciplined life to achieve those goals. Goal setting is absolutely important if we're going to lead more financially disciplined lives. It's so important. You want to keep current. You got to stay up on what's going on in finance, what's going on in markets, what's going on with interest rates. There's so many different websites. You could spend 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a night going to a website. What happened in the markets today? What did the Federal Reserve say? What was the GDP? How's unemployment doing? What's interest rates doing? It's not hard to do. You got CNBC, you got Fox Business. There's so many different sources. And again, most people look at this stuff as arcane and they don't really want to know about it, but you need to know the basics. And you got to become more disciplined. That's the simple thing. Don't spend more money. Don't spend money unless you have it. It's old advice, something your grandparents used to tell you. Remember that? Oh, we don't buy anything until we have the money to buy it. No debt for us. Well, that's changed, hasn't it? And believe it or not, I'm going to give you a little secret. The future does come. It does come. And many of us live for today. We'll worry about retirement when that comes. Our child's 2 years old. We'll worry about college later on. Right now, I'm worried about paying the mortgage. for the house that I can't afford that I shouldn't have bought in the first place. I'm worried about the 2 new car payments me and my wife have to make on the brand new car we shouldn't have bought in the first place. There's lots and lots of good books out there that'll teach you the basics of finance. Not the least is my book, The Financial Physician, How to Cure Your Money Problems and Boost Your Financial Health. I wrote it in 2010. It's just as appropriate today as it was then. It's free. Just go to the website, thefinancialphysician.com. Download the PDF. It's free. I don't make a dime off of it if you do that. But I've had people read the book and say, you know what, that was an easy read. I learned a lot. Or this is a great book for my kids who are just getting married, not to get in trouble. There's other good books out there. Personal Finance for Dummies. The dummy book is great. What other? The Total Money Makeover. Dave Ramsey. Everybody knows who Dave Ramsey is. He's a debt crusader. He believes in working hard, paying cash for what you want, and getting out of debt. His book is very good about attacking debt and how to do it. So if you're struggling with credit cards and debt, get his book and follow what he says. Another great book, and when I first started in radio, I interviewed this guy, The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. And what he does, he interviews a bunch of millionaires, and they reveal their secrets of success. And, you know, most millionaires are ordinary people. You would never know they're millionaires. Chances are they have a used car. They don't buy new cars all the time. They have a respectable house. They don't have a mansion. That's how they accumulated their wealth, living within their means and saving and investing. Or having a small business. That's why he calls it the millionaire next door. You would never know because he doesn't live the life of a millionaire. He lives more frugally. There's another book out by David Bach called The Automatic Millionaire, a powerful one-step plan to live and finish rich. Very, very good book. So there's lots of resources for you out there. There's lots of resources on the internet. If you want to keep up with what's happening in financial markets, Market Watch, CBS Market Watch, Yahoo Finance, another good one. Kiplinger. Kiplinger is worth subscribing to. But their website has lots of articles on personal finance, estate planning, retirement planning, meant for the average person. Another thing that's imperative, although it's not easy to find, if you're a struggling person, it's going to be hard to find a financial planner to take you on because you have no assets. You have nothing to invest. You have no money to put away. And a financial planner can't take their time, and you're not going to pay them what they need to get paid to put you on the right track. So, that's the problem. You have to do it yourself because financial advisors deal with people with money. And people with money are already disciplined, are already literate to some extent, at least financially. I got to take that one back because that's not necessarily true. I've seen people with $2 million that have no financial literacy. Maybe they inherited it. Maybe they just had a 401k or a lump sum pension that built up over the years, but they're still ignorant when it comes to money. So that's not necessarily true just because you have money that you're financially literate. But, if you're financially illiterate and you have money invested, now's the time to talk to a certified financial planner to make sure you're doing it right, to make sure that your risk tolerance is right. And I tell people in my conference room that success of investing is all based on a pie chart. And that's called asset allocation. And a pie chart, if you will, think about little slices of the pie. Well, what slice of the pie is in the stock market? What slice of the pie is in the bond market? What slice of the pie is in cash and bank accounts earning nothing? And a good financial planner will make sure that pie chart is right for you. And a rule of thumb in financial planning is, you take 100 minus your age. That's your stock market exposure. You should have the maximum amount. So if I'm 70 years old, I shouldn't have 60% in the stock market. I should have 30 max. But what happens with a lot of people, they pay no attention to their investments. So if the market does really well, now they don't have 30% in the market, they have 45%. And they don't bring it back down. And a lot of people now are getting a rude awakening to the fact that markets do go down. And we'll talk about that after the break. Markets are in bad shape right now. People are losing a lot of money in virtually all investments, right? Stocks, bonds. The only thing doing well right now is commodities. Cash earns nothing in a large inflationary environment that we're in. Stocks are down a lot. Interest rates are rising. Bonds are down. And many people are going to get a shock at their quarterly statements when they look at them because they don't know what risks they have in their life. All right, Jim, in my book, I'm going to quiz you. All right, you're going to take a quiz on behalf of our listeners, and we're going to see where you come in on our financial illiteracy quiz. Okay?
Can't wait.
It's multiple choice.
Okay.
All right. So do the best you can, and we're going to see where you fit in. And my listeners, I want you to do this too. All right. Write it down. All right. What's the difference, Jim, between a money market account and a money market mutual fund? Is it A, one pays interest and the other pays capital gains? Is it B, they're basically the same? Or is it C, FDIC insures money market accounts, but not money market mutual funds?
I'm going to say A.
Okay. All right. So he's going to say A. All right. Number 2, a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA differ in the following ways. Traditional IRAs can invest in risky assets such as stocks, and Roth IRAs must be more conservative. B, they are taxed differently. C, not all people can invest in a Roth, but everyone can invest in a traditional IRA.
That's B.
All right, B. Okay. All right. These aren't as popular now, so when I wrote the book, they were, so I don't expect you to really come in good on this one. What is an option ARM? All right, and I'm going to give I'm going to tell you what ARM stands for, not your arm off your body. It's adjustable rate mortgage. So back in the day, before you were even an adult probably, these were really, really popular. They were called option ARMs. Mm-hmm. All right, so is it A, an adjustable rate mortgage that can be converted to a fixed rate in the future? Is it a mortgage that allows you to either pay interest and principal, interest only, or a minimum amount that does not cover the interest? Or is it C, a credit line secured by your home that could be drawn upon as needed?
I'm going to say B.
B, okay. A 25-year-old with a new family and a tight budget should buy what type of life insurance? A, term insurance, since more death benefits can be purchased for the same premium as a whole life policy. Whole life insurance because it builds cash value over the years. A 25-year-old does not need life insurance as his or her chance of dying is slim.
That's a B, too.
Okay, B. All right. The broadest gauge of the U.S. stock market performance is the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, or the NASDAQ.
Can you please repeat that one for me?
What is the broadest gauge of the U.S. stock market performance? A, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. B, the S&P 500. C, NASDAQ.
A.
Okay. When buying a car, the best value long-term is buying a brand new car, leasing a new or late model car, or buying a late model used car. C.
What was A on that one?
A is buying a brand new car.
Uh-huh.
B is leasing a new or late model car. Or C, buying a late model used car.
A.
Okay. How much?
I feel like I'm falling apart here.
Well, we'll see at the end. How much money should you save of your pre-tax income? 5%, 10%, or 20%? Of your pre-tax income.
5%.
Okay. How much credit card debt is acceptable? 5,000, 10,000, or 0?
0.
Good man. When should you have a will prepared? Not until you're over 40, when you get married and start a family, or as soon as you accumulate some assets?
Probably the family.
Okay, when you get married and start a family.
Yes.
How often should you request your personal credit report? Before I apply for a large loan like a mortgage, once a year, or every 4 months?
I'm going to say every 4 months.
Okay. All right. So we had 10 questions here. Let's see how many you got right. And somewhat impressed. 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 5 right out of 10.
I got a 50. That's pretty reasonable. That's usually what I would get.
So if you got 0 to 3 right, you're financially illiterate. Definitely financially illiterate. You better start learning right now. All right. You're 4 to 5. Okay, so you're in the 4 to 5 range. You have some financial knowledge.
All thanks to this show.
Okay, but it's time to read some personal finance books, that's for sure. If you got 6 to 7 right, you're pretty good. You still have some work to do. 8 to 9, you know your stuff, and you should be doing well financially. And if you got all 10 right, you're absolutely financially literate, and you are excellent. All right, so that's financial literacy. I guess all of us, not all of us, but most of us are somewhat financially literate, whether it's about estate planning, whether it's about taxes, whether it's about the economy. There's very few people that are excellent, totally financially literate. And the idea is not to be totally financially literate. The idea is to be pretty financially literate, where you know the basics of finance. And the first step is download my book, The Financial Physician, How to Cure Your Money Problems, Boost Your Financial Health, at thefinancialphysician.com. Totally free of charge. I make nothing off of it except the satisfaction that people are learning about finance and increasing their financial literacy. And that is chapter 1 of The Financial Physician. All right, time for a break. You want to be part of the program? 237-9626, 732-237-9626. My name is Lou Scatigna. You're listening to The Financial Physician. Don't go away.